Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us for a special edition of ABC News Live Prime. Tonight, we want to bring you the story of Jamie Snow. He's been in prison for 24 years, convicted of murdering an 18-year-old gas station attendant. It's a crime that, to this day, Snow maintains he did not commit. And now his family, the Exoneration Project, a 50-time best-selling author, a class at Georgetown University, and a host of other advocates are all teaming up to try to get Jamie Snow released. Our team spent months digging into this very complex story. We got a chance to meet Snow's family and also visit with Snow behind bars. Tonight, our in-depth report, the case of Jamie Snow. When you were found guilty, what went through your mind?
It's crazy, but all of a sudden it got really quiet and the lights got really bright. And it was like I couldn't believe it. You know, I just, the whole time I was thinking, there's no way that they're gonna be able to convict me for this. There's no way. I didn't do it.
Jamie Snow is serving life in prison, convicted of murdering a man he says he never met in a crime he says he did not commit.
Welcome back to Wrongful Conviction, where we've got a case that's making my head spin. It's crazy on so many levels. And to help us tell this story today, we have a legend in the innocence community. John Grisham, welcome to Wrongful Conviction.
Happy to be here, Jason.
A real-life page-turner, Snow's case has caught a lot of attention.
Did you ever write a story about Jamie Snow?
I mean, look at the story. How intriguing is it?
Famed crime author John Grisham, known for bestsellers turned into hit movies like The Pelican Brief and series The Innocent Man.
In small towns like Ada, the prosecutors and the police were under enormous pressure to solve two sensational murders.
The police made a composite sketch.
Music producer and podcaster Jason Flom, as well as the Exoneration Project, agree something doesn't add up.
Jamie's case is really remarkable in how little evidence there ever was against him. Jamie's case has everything that we would look for in a case that involves a wrongful conviction.
In 2001, Snow was convicted for the 1991 cold case murder of 18-year-old gas station attendant William Little in Bloomington, Illinois. Since then, one key eyewitness has recanted his testimony, and Snow's legal team petitioned the court asking for DNA evidence from that day to be retested using modern technology, and for some evidence to be tested for the first time.
The technology, when it comes to the ability to figure out whose DNA, how many people's DNA, where that DNA can be traced, is light years away from what it was in '91.
More than 70,000 have signed an online petition supporting Snow. Snow's daughters are among those petitioners.
I have lost some photos, and it's like heartbreaking.
34 years ago, his family was his alibi. Today, they say they're collateral damage. So it hasn't just been your dad who's been punished?
No, our whole family's been punished.
It was 8 p.m. on Easter Sunday, 1991, when police say an assailant entered a Bloomington gas station, holding it up at gunpoint. A silent alarm was set off. 18-year-old attendant William Little murdered in a robbery gone awry. The gunman fled the scene with cash from the register. William Little, gas station attendant, Easter of 1991. To the best of your recollection, do you have any idea where you were that evening, the night he was killed?
I know exactly where I was. I was at home with my wife and our 3 kids. For me, being at home was not the best place to be because it was just us.
The difficulty of having an alibi is who's going to be able to tell the story for you. The government or prosecutors are going to say, well, who else would lie to make sure that their father stays home? Who else would lie to make sure that their husband doesn't go to prison? And so while you might have an alibi of your close family and friends, that might not be enough if law enforcement says that you're the one who committed this crime.
Police collected evidence from the scene, including fingerprints, shoe prints, and blood. They questioned potential witnesses around town and made a composite sketch. Police relied heavily on two eyewitnesses, Danny Martinez, who says he was in the parking lot of the gas station at the time of the murder, and Carlos Luna, who was 14 at the time of the incident and claimed to see the gunman from the window of a residence more than 200 feet away. Both were given lineups to pick out the gunman. Lineups that included Bloomington resident Jamie Snow, who was 25 at the time, who already had a criminal record, including residential burglary, resisting a police officer, and theft of more than $300.
I'd been in trouble. It was a small town. Bloomington was a small town.
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knew everybody. And I was an easy target. I had created such a bad reputation for myself that it was easy. It was easy for them.
According to prosecutors at trial, within 3 months of the murder, 14-year-old Carlos Luna picked Jamie Snow out of the lineup. When Danny Martinez was given the same lineup, he did not.
There are a number of difficulties when it comes to identifying an individual amongst a group who look very similar. It's called cross-racial identification, and there is science behind why that is difficult.
Throughout police investigations, jailhouse informants were also questioned who claimed to have information about the murder. One of those letters, sent to the state's attorney's office in 1996, seen here, says, "I have in my possession the name of the person who committed the William Little murder at the Clark gas station. While in your possession is the key to my freedom. In simple terms, I want to make a trade."
If their testimony isn't corroborated with other facts that show that they are telling the truth, that can be a very dangerous tool used to convict someone who might not be guilty of that crime.
William Little's murder loomed over this small Illinois town unsolved until 1998. At that time, according to court testimony, detectives were assigned to re-examine Little's murder. And by 1999, a grand jury had heard enough evidence to indict Jamie Snow.
It's a terrible crime. 18-year-old kid is killed. The community wants answers, understandably. And for 8 years, the police couldn't give them answers. And so I think in a situation like that, there's an enormous amount of pressure to solve the case.
But even prosecutors admitted in court there was no physical evidence collected connecting Jamie to the scene. They turned their attention back to one person at the scene when police arrived, Danny Martinez, the eyewitness who did not pick Jamie out of the lineup in 1991. In July of 2000, he claimed to have a sudden memory recall, nearly a decade after the murder. In his trial testimony, Martinez described seeing a photo of the original in-person lineup for the first time, saying it was his eyes that I'll never forget, pointing to Jamie as the killer.
As a defense attorney, I would call that confirmation bias. If I see a group of 5 people and there's one person who's in that group, and then I see another group of 5 people and that same person is in that next group for multiple years, and the news is talking about this person, and I'm hearing their name, the mind and the eyes can play tricks on themselves.
In 2001, Jamie Snow was convicted and sentenced to life for the murder of William Little.
I think how little evidence there ever was against Jamie in the first place. Never was a confession, never was any kind of forensic evidence, no fingerprints, nothing that tied him to the scene.
Circumstantial evidence can be used to convict a person. And what the prosecution did in this case was show enough footprints that they say match that of Jamie Snow and no one else beyond a reasonable doubt to convict him. So there might not have been the physical evidence, there might not have been a great eyewitness, but there was enough pieces for them to put together and the identification through a witness that hadn't recanted to convict Jamie Snow.
424-0660, State of Illinois versus James Snow.
Snow was convicted by a jury after prosecutors presented several witnesses who said that he made statements implicating himself in the shooting. Snow now has a new defense team. They point to 4 of 8 individuals who came to police while in custody or testified while in custody and have since recanted their claims made at the time, claims prosecutors originally used against Snow at trial. They range from acquaintances to childhood friends to cellmates from other crimes. Eyewitness Carlos Luna also recanted his testimony 9 years after Jamie's conviction. Now an adult, he filed an affidavit provided by Snow's legal team saying, "I cannot say I am sure that Jamie Snow is the person who I observed." Still, the other eyewitness at the scene of the crime, Danny Martinez, always maintained his statement, as do the remaining 4 jailhouse informants who did not recant.
I would say it's not common, but it's not surprising that a witness will recant their own testimony, especially when it comes to an eyewitness. At least when I'm talking to a jury, I always talk about, have you ever been walking down the street and swear you saw someone you recognized, and you walk up to them and you're saying their name and they turn around and you're like, that's not the person that I thought it was? That's how eyewitness accounts can be misleading.
So it was only these alleged eyewitness accounts and
And the snitches.
nothing else connecting you?
Nope.
No gun,
No gun.
no DNA.
No DNA. Nothing. And I don't understand why they don't want to do the forensic testing. It's a no-lose situation for the prosecutors. You're either going to get nothing and be able to say, see, we told you, or, you know, you're going to get something that implicates me, and then they're going to be like, see, we told you he did it. And for some reason, they just are fighting it.
The absence of Jamie's DNA at a location where a crime occurred would not be enough to overturn a conviction. Just because your DNA is not at a scene doesn't mean you weren't there.
Snow has tried to appeal his conviction multiple times, and each time it was denied by an appeals court. Shackles, though not visible, firmly clamped down his dreams and those of his children.
People would say my dad was a murderer to my face. And it gave me kind of a complex because I felt like people were just constantly associating me with this crime. And I didn't have like my own identity. Convicted at 35, Jamie Snow is now 59 years old, serving life without parole here at the Illinois River Correctional Center. What happened with your marriage?
I got locked up, and she, you know, my wife was trying to raise 5 kids. It just didn't work.
She always believed in your innocence.
Oh, she's the only person in the world who knows beyond all doubt.
Because you were there with her.
We were together, and I think that has really traumatized her as well.
Earlier this year, Danny Martinez, that eyewitness in the parking lot, died. Both detectives on Snow's case and prosecutors in Snow's trial either did not return ABC News' request for comment or declined to give a statement. Next, more on the grassroots effort to get Snow out of prison, whether his family thinks that will ever happen, and the legal avenues he may still have to make that a reality. In recent years, alleged wrongfully accused cases have found a spotlight in the media, like in the hit docuseries Making a Murderer.
Everyone is talking about Making a Murderer and the trials of Stephen Avery.
And the scripted series Presumed Innocent, starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
My suspect, because I did not kill her.
Snow's case captured the attention of a class at Georgetown University.
A lot of times in these cases, we have individuals who have lived criminal lives. They may have been a drug dealer, they may have robbed somebody, but they didn't kill anybody. So how do you tell that story in a very compelling way?
Producing a documentary on Snow's conviction.
Luna claimed to have seen the face of the perpetrator coming out of the gas station. Using the hair salon that's in place of the gas station today, this is roughly the view that Luna would have had from his house, 212 feet away.
We immediately jumped on it as a perfect case for our program because there were so many markers and hallmarks of a wrongful conviction.
And since 2010, Jamie's family and supporters have launched the Free Jamie Snow movement.
He's got a huge group and growing group of supporters, including John Grisham. So I think there are all kinds of people who are standing up for Jamie. So yeah, he couldn't identify somebody who he knew from childhood at the time of the crime, but
After scouring the evidence, music mogul and criminal justice advocate Jason Flom dedicated an episode of his Wrongful Convictions podcast to the case.
His case stinks. I mean, let's face it. There is physical evidence, but none of it matches him. There's no credible eyewitnesses. None of it makes any sense. When an innocent person is locked up and the guilty person remains free, that guilty person is free to inflict more harm on other people who should never know that fate. The real perpetrator, as you said, is never going to be brought to justice.
Flom recruited 50-time best-selling author John Grisham for the episode.
There's no physical evidence and no eyewitnesses, and most murders are not witnessed, so you have to rely on the evidence.
Grisham says he's dedicated a number of his novels to highlighting problems he sees in the criminal justice system.
Is it surprising to you, based on your research, that people without any kind of physical evidence are connected to a crime, arrested, convicted?
Oh, that happens so often in these wrongful conviction cases where you have no physical evidence, which ought to be the threshold. If there is no physical evidence, that's a huge red flag.
What's the best outcome you think Jamie Snow could hope for?
Clemency, sympathy from the governor.
The Illinois governor's office declined ABC News' request for comment. Brenda Leckler and Susan Little, the mother and sister of the man who was killed at the gas station that night, told ABC News they still believe Jamie Snow is the right man behind bars, writing, "There is nothing we can say that will change anything. We put this situation in God's hands a long time ago. As far as we are concerned, he is where he belongs." What would you say to William Little's family if you were able to talk to them today?
I've got an 18-year-old grandson, and Bill Little was 18 when he was murdered, and I couldn't imagine losing my grandson or my granddaughter in any way. It's even worse, a violent crime. But I can promise you that no one wants justice for Bill Little more than I do. Because justice for Bill Little is justice for me, it's justice for my family. And I remember telling Miss Little at my sentencing hearing, I turned around and I looked at her and I told her, I wish I could tell you what happened, but I don't know. But I am sorry for their loss.
He says on here, "I love and miss you always. It makes me very proud of you that you're willing to put yourself out there and tell people your story. You have had to grow up fast, and I'm just glad you're growing up right."
Jamie Snow's family also feels they've suffered a devastating loss, tantamount to a death in the family.
My dad always makes sure to send us cards for our birthdays.
That's a picture of Nicole and my dad.
That's a picture I was able to take with him in Statesville.
Oh, wow.
It's our only real photo that we have together.
His two daughters, Nicole and Jessica Snow, believe their father is innocent and they're fighting for his exoneration. Nicole was just 7 years old when he was convicted, Jessica, 16. Growing up in Bloomington, it's a small town where everybody knows everybody.
Small enough that they know our name in that town just from this.
Do you remember that moment when they said guilty and how you felt?
Yeah, it was horrible.
What makes you so confident he's innocent?
I went to his trial. I was 14. It was just crazy. I was like, there's no way that they're gonna find him guilty of this. And when they did, I was shocked and devastated.
They still live in Bloomington today and have lived most of their lives without him. His 8 grandchildren have never seen him outside these prison walls. Give us a sense of what it's been like to basically live your entire lives without your dad.
We've struggled a lot. When my mom started having to work, full time, and there was 5 of us, so then she started to struggle. And it was really hard to make it, so we did without a lot sometimes.
Has there ever been a time in your lives where you all doubted his innocence?
Never.
As I got older, I started to think, do I believe in his innocence, or do I love him because he's my dad? And that's when I really realized for myself, I believe even aside from him being my dad and not knowing him, I genuinely believe in his case and that he is innocent.
There's only one statutory element that's in dispute in this case, whether the proposed testing has the scientific potential to produce results that are materially relevant to the petitioner's claim of innocence.
In March, a judge heard Snow's team's latest oral arguments, requesting new forensic testing and retesting of evidence. DNA can provide hope of exoneration. The Innocence Project says as of 2020, 375 people have been freed after a DNA test proved their innocence.
And what we're asking for is just basic investigation.
But the appeal for DNA testing and retesting was denied once again, with the court saying it wouldn't prove his innocence. His team has petitioned to again appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court.
I guess the worry of creating bad precedents, of reevaluating evidence in this case, would be that it would open the floodgates, that more people who are convicted of crimes would come forward saying, let's test this or test that. But as a defense attorney, that's not my fear. My fear is that there's a person who's incarcerated and they're not supposed to be there.
The Snow sisters say they are perpetually stuck between hope and heartbreak.
What's been the hardest part of it all?
It's mourning somebody who's still living.
Yes.
The damage that this has done has been generational. I tell my kids all the time that I failed them. And I didn't fail them because I committed this crime, but had I been the father and the man that I was supposed to be in the very beginning, I would have never created the scenario.
What do you imagine doing with your dad if he is freed?
We're definitely going to take a family vacation to the beach.
Are you all hopeful that he'll get home?
Yeah.
I have to have hope because I can't just imagine him never coming home.
We will stay on top of Jamie Snow's story and be sure to bring you any new developments in his case. I'm Linsey Davis. That's all for us here at ABC News Live Prime. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Good night.